Welcome back, friends, to part 7 of our quick start tutorial series about the polyjob SA342 Gazelle here in DCS. In today's part we will take a closer look at the sighting system of our helicopter. This part includes the huge key binding part and the operation of the Athos camera, that's the small and older side version, and of course the APX397, also called the Viviane. Let's take a closer look. And there we are again in front of our beautiful M-Gazelle variant. What you can see on the top of the helicopter here is the Athos camera. The Athos camera is the, I would say, older version of the Viviane. It's only daylight capable and it's, only a normal TV image. So you can do reconnaissance at day. It has more or less the same features as the Viviane, but what's missing here is the IR view, so the infrared view. So it only works at daylight, but it's controlled exactly the same like the Viviane. If we look to the next version, it's the minigun version of the Gazelle. You can see we don't even have any kind of sight mounted. Also, on the co-pilot side, there is no panel to control the Viviane. So in the M-Gazelle, you only have the minigun mounted, but no sight. So you can't do reconnaissance with this version. If we hop on to the next one, this is the Mistral Gazelle, so the air-to-air variant of the Gazelle. You can see we also have the Athos camera system on the top installed. So it's the same like the L variant. And now comes the big part. If we move further to the M variant of the Gazelle, you can see we have our APX397 Viviane sighting camera installed on top. And as you can see, it's much bigger than the Athos system. This system is also capable for night operation because you can turn on the IR, so the infrared view, and you can toggle between the normal screen, so the normal TV image, and the IR image. This system is also capable to guide our HOT missiles, which we can take a closer look later on. So today we will take a closer look at the Viviane, but everything I show you in this tutorial about the Viviane is also possible to do with the Athos, except the IR capability. The keybinds and the way of handling the sight is the same for both versions. And as always, before we start, just some short facts about the APX397 Viviane sighting camera. The camera can be orientated 120 degrees in azimuth, so left and right, and 25 degrees up and 20 degrees down. As soon as the camera is spooled up completely, the camera is gyro stabilized. We have 5 times of zoom level and, as already explained with the Viviane, we have the option to turn on our infrared. There we are back in the cockpit of our Gazelle, this time in the M variant. First of all, we want to take a closer look to the co-pilot seat, and to switch the seat, you just have to click the number 2 on the top left of your keyboard, and with 1 you can go back to the pilot seat, but we want to stay on the co-pilot seat for a moment. We just do a quick overview over all the panels we got here and of the joystick of the co-pilot. And then we go to the huge part of the key bindings. So we need quite a lot of key bindings here, and I would recommend to bind them all on your joystick or HOTAS system. Okay, let's start on the left hand side of the cockpit with the joystick of the co-pilot. First of all, on the top left we have our lasing button. The Viviane and Athos are able to use laser range finding to get a distance to our designated target. It is not possible to designate targets for others or for laser-guided weapons. It is only a rangefinder. To the right of the lasing button we have the first 4-way switch, which is used to change the image focus and the gain of the image. The next 4-way switch is used for image brightness and symbology brightness. The next covered switch is the missile launch button. We need that one later on when we use our HOT3 missiles of the M-Gazelle. Below the missile launch button, we have a toggle switch to inverse our sight symbology. The button on the bottom right is the inversed image toggle. If we use our infrared, we can switch between white hot view and black hot view with this button. One of the most important things that we need to get an image of our sighting system is our monitor. On the left, we can change our contrast of the monitor. On the right, we can increase or decrease the brightness of the monitor. The little flip switch in the middle is used to turn off and on the screen. Let's move further right to our control panel. On the top left, we have our power selector for the whole sighting system. Even if there are 3 positions, we can only use 2 of them, off and on. Further right, we can turn on our infrared system. The system has 3 possible modes. Off, so the system is shut down completely. Standby, the system warms up but is not operational. And on, I think it's obvious now the system is turned on and running. To use the infrared image, it has to be turned on completely. Next we have our so-called mode knob. Of course, off means off. Convoy means the system is powered but the camera is stowed to the rear. It is mostly used during the flight towards the AO, so the camera don't get flies, mosquitoes or other pollution on the lens. Standby means the system does not show any image, but is ready for immediate operation if needed. My personal procedure is to turn it from convoy to standby at least 5 minutes prior reaching my AO. Man mode turns the camera in front and is the normal operating mode. In this mode, you are able to turn the camera, search for targets, designate targets and fire your HOT3 missiles. In lock mode, the camera will be locked on its last position. The stick in the middle is used to turn the camera in all 4 directions, so left, right, up and down. The flip switch next to the stick is used to recenter the sight. If you get lost and want to turn the camera to the front again, so to say doing a reset of the camera, just flip that switch up once. It will get more clear as soon as we use the system. Below the flip switch we have our push button to switch between the normal TV image and the infrared image. On the bottom left we have our rotary switch to increase or decrease our zoom level. Wow, that is a huge bunch of information right now, isn't it? Everything sounds so complicated, but if you get used to it, it will really make sense to you, believe me. Before we go to the key bindings, let's take a quick look at the symbology of our TV monitor. Okay guys, I just departed here to show you the symbology of our TV monitor. On the top left, we can see our range in meters as soon as we hit our lasing button. On the top middle, we have our deviation from our aircraft heading towards the direction the camera is looking. If we turn the camera to the left, we get a G, which tells us that the camera is looking towards the left of the datum line of the aircraft. If we move the camera to the right, we see a D, which tells us that the camera is looking to the right of the datum line of the helicopter. If the upper value shows 0, the camera is aligned with the datum line. Below this value we can see in which direction the camera is looking. So in our case now it's 006. On the bottom right we see our launch authorization for the HOT3 missiles. If the camera is pointed towards the left or right, the missile can't be shot. You see, now the launch authorization is gone, and if I align it again with the datum line of the helicopter, we see again our launch authorization. We will cover the engagement with the HOT3 missiles in the next episode. Okay, that's it. We are back on the ground. Let's go through all the relevant key bindings that are recommended for the operation of the Viviane. If you don't have an HOTAS, you can also use your mouse to click all the switches we just talked about, but I really recommend to bind the most important ones to your stick or HOTAS. So we press escape, going to the control settings. And what I really recommend is to bind, first of all, your lasing button. So the SA342 lasing button, that's on the joystick, the top left button to get our range information. Of course, we also need our missile launch button. You can also see the keyboard keybinds there, but yes, as I said, I really recommend to use the buttons on your stick. The next one is the zoom increase and decrease. So the SA342 zoom plus and zoom minus. I also suggest to find a button for the normal IR view toggle. So you can switch between your IR view and your normal TV picture. Then we have our inverse image toggle. That's also a button I would recommend to set. So we can switch between black hot and white hot. The next one is the SA342 camera centering. So if you mess up and you don't know where your camera is looking at, just press this button to recenter, as we just explained. Okay, for the next step, so I also use the 4-way switches on the stick. I set it up a modifier. So if I hold my modifier, that's a button, and press one of my binds here, you can see I can increase the symbology brightness and decrease it, and also the image brightness decrease and increase. And I also have the gain increase and decrease bind it. How to do a modifier? So for me, it is my pinky switch on my HOTAS. You just go to modifier, and then you have a modifier here. You can say add. You use the one you want to use. So in my case, it was the joystick. And then you can hit your button and tell DCS that this button is now your modifier. So if you press this button and, for example, you have your trigger bind. If you press this button, you can assign the trigger new. So normal trigger is function A. And if you press the modifier and the trigger, it's function B. So it just gives me the opportunity to use my buttons for two functions. So if I press it without modifier, I can inverse the image, and if I press the modifier and press the button, I can do a different switch. You know. So just try it, but it's not that necessary. I just like it to use when I have my hands on my controls, that I don't have to use the mouse. Next important is, of course, our SA342 slew left, right, up, and down. You can also bind this one to an axis. I did this one here. So I have BCV, slew left, right, and up and down on my TDC, on my HOTAS. But you can also just bind a normal button to it to slew the camera up and down. The rest of the buttons here, so to turn on our Viviane or to turn on the IR, that's something I always do with the mouse, because that's something you don't need it. You don't need it during the operation. So once it is turned on, it will stay on. So you don't have to switch it. So you don't have to bind it on your HOTAS or on your joystick. Okay, cool. Okay, guys, let's move on to the practical part. The procedure I show you here is my personal procedure. It's nothing that is official. So I will just talk you through how I use the Viviane in my way. You can adapt it to your cockpit flow or do it completely different, but I will show you how I do it in the Gazelle. So first of all, before we use our Viviane, I flip up the covers here, because our designated lasing button here on the HOTAS, we can't use it if the cover is on. So first of all, I flip up both of these covers. Then I turn on my TV here, and you see you get a green light, but the TV doesn't show anything. Of course it can't, because our Viviane is still stowed. Then I turn on the whole system. That's something I do completely with my mouse, so we can turn it on here. I turn on my IR selector to on, And yeah, we don't have that much flying towards our AO, so I can also turn on our mode selector to standby. Okay, cool. That's it. So you see the Viviane is still stowed. We can now go to manual and you will see it will turn towards the front, and now we can use it. And if we go to standby, it will retract again. Okay, so let's find some targets. I switch now to the left hand seat here and we'll just depart a bit here. So no procedure for the departure. We talked about that in an earlier part. So I'm flying now towards the AO with the stowed Viviane, of course, but the system is completely operational now. The IR is not operational at the moment because it takes about 3 minutes to warm up. So that's the reason why I already turned on the IR, because we don't have that much flight time right now, you know. And that's the reason why it's already turned on. You can also turn it to standby. This will warm up the system as well, but it doesn't matter if you turn it to standby or on. So if you don't want to forget it, just turn it to on and you're fine. So we know on the pier, the northern part of Kazap here, we have our 4 trucks. So I will just get a good position. We don't hide behind buildings because I want to show you all the stuff of the Viviane right now. I will turn on my axis here, you know this from previous parts. And we just try to get into and hover here. I think that looks good. No, it doesn't. Oh, we're still too fast. Just give me a second here. I think I need my Doppler version here. Oh, okay. It's a bit. Okay, so. Nah, come on. Now we are in the outer hover. We can see this on the bottom left, you know that one from the previous part. And yeah, we are now in the outer hover. So now in the outer hover we can go to our left hand seat, and I would say we turn our knob down here, the mode selector, to manual. So the camera will turn towards the front and we have our image here. So what I show you here is just the screen a bit bigger because I think it's easier to see. I am now using only my key bindings, so I don't use the mouse now on the control panel. So on the TDC we assigned our axis, so I can now in the manual mode slew the camera to the left, to the right. I can slew it up and down. So I see now the picture is really dark, so I will adjust my brightness on the TV monitor here. So we just increase it a bit and add a bit of contrast here until the image looks fine for us. Okay, that's something I of course do with the mouse. So now we can slew and search for targets. You can now use your slew to slew the camera. Then we assigned our zoom buttons. You have 5 stages of zoom which you can use. So we can now take a look at the pier here, zoom in, and we see, oh, there are our targets. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah. So we have 4 trucks here on the pier, and you see you can use that. That's why I think it's good to bind those commands, because I have now my hands on the controls and I can do zoom in, zoom out, slew the camera left and right, and we can now toggle our IR view with the M-Gazelle, and you see we are currently in the white hot mode, and I can turn to black hot mode. You see I can switch these images, and this is now an IR image. So this is TV, and this is IR. Well, maybe some of you think, okay, I don't have a difference. Yeah, in this daylight conditions, we can now also adjust our image brightness via our four-way switches on the stick. So we can now try to increase or decrease the brightness of our picture. We can now increase the picture here. So you see the four-way switches on the stick. I also bind it. You can adjust your clear image as needed. So here we have black hot, here we have white hot. This is TV. Okay, cool. So now we click on our laser range button, and be aware, you have to open the flip cover of the laser button to use it. So if I press it now, I can see, okay, this target is on heading 354 with a range of 2,190 meters. We can go further. This target is on heading 355 with a range of 2,188, and so on. The G with 005 tells me that the camera is currently looking 5 degrees to the left of the aircraft datum line. So if you remember the last part, I told you to bind one of the following switches here. The SA342 auto slave toggle. I think it was the last part where I told you that you should bind this one as well. And this is a really cool function. If we look here to the bottom left, we have hover and collective. And we can tell now the aircraft, if we press the slave button, to slave our helicopter to our camera. So now we have G001 and now we have 0. So I can show you this in an extreme. We will zoom out here. And if I turn the camera to the left, you will see that the helicopter will turn with it. So the helicopter is always aligning with the camera. And that's the slave button. So if you're in an auto hover and you're looking for targets and you want the helicopter to be aligned with your camera side, then you can use this slave button. Okay, cool. So we can now switch back to black hot, TV. We can do our reconnaissance stuff and so on. Okay, perfect. Guys, that's it. It was a lot of theory. So we had a huge theoretical part, but I hope you have fun with trying out the Viviane system. Wow, this part was really long, but it is necessary for our next part, the weapon engagement of the M-Gazelle. If you use the Viviane right, it is a great tool for reconnaissance. You can sneak into enemy territory and spot some targets. I hope this video helps you understand how the sighting cameras of the Gazelle work. Keep in mind that you can use your TV mode also with the L and Mistral version of the Gazelle, but infrared is only possible with the M-Gazelle. I hope to see you all in the next episode when we blow up stuff with our HOT3 missiles. Stay healthy and all the best.